Thank you for joining the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Northwestern Division for today's Missouri River Basin Water Management Conference Call and Webinar. Those invited to attend include congressional representatives, tribal and state and local government officials, to include emergency managers, local levee sponsors, and the media. Today's call will include presentations from the National Weather Service, NOAA Climate Prediction Center, and Missouri Basin River Forecast Center, as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Missouri River Water Management Division, Kansas City and Omaha districts, who will provide the Kansas City and Omaha districts will provide levee repair updates. I'm Eileen Williamson, and I will be moderating today's call. Today's call slides are available on our website at www.nwd-mr.usace.army.mil/RCC. These calls are recorded and placed on the Defense Video and Imagery Distribution System at www.dvidsk.net/unit/usace-nwd. Your participation acknowledges your consent to be recorded. For the convenience of our media representatives, the final slide in this presentation includes each speaker's name, title, and contact information. All lines have been placed on mute. When we get to the question and answer session period, to unmute your line to ask a question, press *6. Please be aware the forced mute function does not work on all phones, so if I ask, please use your phone's own mute function to avoid interrupting the call. Do not call on hold. Calls for questions will not be part of the recording if none are asked. This will be the last scheduled call for 2020 of the 2020 runoff year. If situation necessitates, we will host an ad hoc call and make announcements for that in advance. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Doug Fleck.
All right. Well, you're going to have to flip the slides for me, whoever's in control there. Thanks a lot to the Corps and all of you folks who are on the call for listening in today. And if you have any questions, there's, like I said, like Eileen said, there's ways to contact us, I think, at the end of my presentation as well as at the end of the whole thing here. Anyway, just a roundup on what's been going on in the Missouri Basin over the last, well, this is from the beginning of the year, actually, because it kind of tells a nice story of how we dodged several bullets, I would say, for the most part. This is from January 1st to a couple of days ago. The image on the left, upper left, is a depiction of temperature, where you see sort of yellow colors or even a light green colors. Those are pretty close to normal, averaged out over that entire period. Generally, our conditions were fairly normal when you take that 5 month period and look at temperatures. So a little bit cooler up in Montana in a couple places and eastern North Dakota, and then some warmth across, let's say, the southern portions of the basin. I think the real story, though, is precipitation, and that's the image on the right. Again, January 1st of this year through June 2nd. And wherever you see yellow to red, which is most of the basin, that's below normal, indicates below normal percentage of precipitation. So we ended up having a relatively dry first few months of the year. Yeah, there are some places that got more precipitation, especially the lower basin, very far lower basin. And sometimes this doesn't tell the whole story. There are and were flooding conditions here and there across the basin, but most of it was not comparable to 2019. Next slide. Last 30 days, looking at temperatures again on the upper left, we've definitely been cooler. Across most of the basin, there's some indications of above normal temperatures in Wyoming and Colorado, but really quite a bit below normal temperatures wherever you see green to purple colors across Kansas, Nebraska, eastern, North and South Dakota, even up into portions Montana. So we've been cool. That's kind of changing as we all can go outside and experience. Summer is here. And then looking at precipitation over that same period of early May to early June, we see pockets again of above normal precipitation in the green to purple to blue colored areas. Again, a pale comparison of what we saw last year, and quite a bit more red and yellow and orange, which indicates below normal or less percent of normal precipitation during this time. And I will just say it is a critical time for rangeland and such, so there are some impacts for places in Wyoming and Colorado and Montana and probably western North Dakota as well in terms of that. But in terms of stream flow and water and streams and rivers and such, as you'll see, no major impacts there because of the precipitation yet, or lack thereof for that matter. Next slide. So here it is. Here's from USGS. These are all indicators. All these little colors all over the basin are indicators for how the streams are flowing, and wherever you see green, light blue to dark blue, even to black in some cases, that is average to above normal flows in those rivers. And I will say some of this is residual moisture from 2018 and 2019 because we have such quite a bit stored or was stored in the soils. So anytime we do have a significant rainfall, those numbers jump up pretty quick because base flows are pretty high. But they are behaving, if you will, in terms of floods and such. You might notice in Montana some blues and such up there. It's been warm, and a lot of melting is going on. We're sort of reaching the peak of snow melt in those regions, so you'll see some indications of flooding. I think Kevin will cover that. Next slide. Talking about the soil moisture, we do have areas of above normal soil moisture across portions of most of South Dakota, really, a little bit of Nebraska, some of the lower basin, even extending up into Montana and such. Those are calculated from a model, so those aren't actual observations. You also notice this big dry area sort of in the southwestern portion of the basin. It's been awfully dry, and there are repercussions from that. It doesn't mean the elevations are dry. It just means that the soils out in the plains areas and southern parts of Colorado, really. Next slide. So, looking at... How you doing? Hello? Someone's not on mute. Hey, so looking at the total precipitation over the next 7 days, this is an accumulation of that. So if we accumulate it every day for the next 7 days of how much precipitation is going to fall across the nation, you'll see as it gets sort of more colorful, if you will, towards those yellows and reds, that's more and more and more. They're talking 2, 3, 4, 5, et cetera, inches. Luckily, we're not seeing that in the basin. We are seeing maybe some significant precipitation in South Dakota and such, but significant being around an inch, which won't bother us too much. I'm going to put one caveat in here, and it may be beyond this. Beyond June 11th, I don't know because I don't think we all know yet what the ramifications of Tropical Storm Cristobal is going to be and the track it's going to take if and when it hits the lower 48. You know, if it tracks sort of to the east. To the west a little bit more. Lower basin, probably not upper basin. Lower basin would see significant precipitation from that. So keep an eye on that, I guess, is what I would say for those who are worried about the lower basin. There are some indications that we could get some precipitation from that, and those tropical storms are known to carry with them immense amounts of moisture. So that's I guess the concern at the moment. But again, lower basin, probably Missouri, eastern Kansas, mainly. All right, next slide. This is a complex map. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But really, this is from yesterday, looking at what we call days 3 through 7, the 6th through the 10th, really, and looking at possible hazards. Please ignore the red and blue. Those are for temperatures. But really, the green. If you can see the green circle over Montana, or I shouldn't say circle. That's really more of an oval. There's a chance for heavy precipitation on the 8th and 9th up there. That may complicate runoff melt issues. Could lead to some flooding up there. There's also a period on the 9th and 10th across eastern South Dakota, eastern North Dakota, northeast Nebraska, portions of Iowa, that could also see some heavy precipitation. You note these other ones just to our east up the Mississippi. I think those are attributed or could be attributed to the hurricane, as we were seeing that moisture move, or not a hurricane, sorry, tropical storm, as it sort of fell apart but moved north into the Midwest. So right now they're taking that to our east. But anyway, 2 other areas mentioned potentially in the next 3 to 7 days of heavy precipitation. Next slide. Okay, so the temperature and precipitation probability outlook for the next, for what we call week 2, the 11th through the 17th of June, in other words, kind of a short-range outlook, calls for it on the left, image on the left, above normal chances of temperatures, pretty much extending up into the upper portions of the basin, and sort of below normal temperatures, better chances for those in the eastern part of the basin and really lower part of the basin during that period. Pretty much except for Montana, which only has a slight leaning towards above normal precipitation. The rest of the basin is showing greater chances for less than normal precipitation during that period, June 11th through the 17th. Next slide. Looking at the entirety of June, the image on the left, I hope, speaks for itself. That's a pretty strong indication of above normal temperatures averaging out over the entire month for the month of June. That's the latest outlook for that. And then probabilities for below normal precipitation. This is probably before they knew where that tropical storm would be going. Anyway, if for the lower basin, better probabilities of below normal precipitation and some enhancement in Montana, again, for above normal precipitation in the mountain areas. Next slide. So looking at the 3 months of June, July, and August, in other words, the summer months, temperature on the left again indicates that above normal temperatures are enhanced across the mountains and high plains. In other words, the upper basin and lower basin, pretty much equal chances of above, below, or near normal. EC does not mean normal. All it means is there's equal chances of above, below, or near normal. Looking at precipitation, again, kind of a tale of 2 basins here. Lower basin, better chances for above normal precipitation for June, July, and August in the lower basin, and then slightly lower or slightly enhanced chances of below normal precipitation for the upper basin. Next slide. So, kind of wrapping things up here. Current ENSO conditions, in case anybody cares, still neutral. We're going to have a better handle, I think, in the next month or 2 on the direction we'll probably be heading with El Nino, La Nina. This is normal. This is about the time of year where things begin to get sorted out in the ocean, and thus we can make better predictions for fall and winter and next spring and all that kind of business in terms of El Nino, La Nina. Outlook is for, as we just went through, mainly warm June, slightly shift towards equal chances above normal and near normal, above, below, and near normal, June through August, except for the upper basin, which stays warm. And then precipitation generally leans towards dry in the short term and continued dry for the summer months, but above chances for above normal precipitation are enhanced for most of the eastern part of the basin, probably eastern two-thirds of the basin. So that, I think, is all. One more slide, maybe. Yeah, thank you. We do. If you're starved for climate summary and outlook information like I just provided, plus more, you can always get on these webinars that we hold every single month. And if you don't get this written down and you want to get it, you can always write to me and I'll make sure you get it. You can call me or send me an email. We do partner climate webinars, summaries, and outlooks pretty much all year round. So thank you very much. And over to probably Kevin, right?
Yep. Thanks, Doug. Yep. To you, Kevin Lau. And as a reminder, the slides are available on our website. So if you're looking for this information, they can be downloaded along with this information. Kevin Lau?
All righty. Thank you, Eileen. As Doug said, I want to pass along the thanks of the National Weather Service for the Corps having us participate on these series of calls. Also, as Doug mentioned, the first week of June typically witnesses the peak flow for the mountainous streams, and this year is no exception. In fact, we're at peak now at many locations in the mountains. What is unusual about this week, and Doug alluded to this a little bit, is that we've had warmer than normal temperatures. Some areas in the mountainous west are seeing daytime highs 10 degrees or more above normal, and nighttime lows are not getting below freezing. That's even at the higher elevations, above 9,500 feet. So even though we did peak in April with a near normal mountain snowpack, we are seeing higher than normal flows this week at the peak. And that's all because of the above average temperatures. There's one location. Well, wait. I guess I'm jumping ahead here. So over the past couple of days, we've lost anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow water equivalent, and this rapid melt has led to some minor flooding in the mountains. We've seen minor flooding along the Wind River in Wyoming, along the Boulder River, Clark's Fork, Yellowstone, and the Yellowstone River in Montana. And in fact, the Clark's Fork, Yellowstone at a small town called Edgar, Montana, actually has probably set a new record on Monday. It was about a tenth higher than the previous record set back in 1997. But to date, all of the flooding that we've seen in the mountainous west is of minor nature and with little to no impact. So we've also seen a fair share of flooding in the lower plains over the past week to 10 days, where we had a widespread rain amount over the past 10 days, anywhere from 2 to more than 5 inches over eastern Nebraska, southern Iowa, eastern Kansas, and western Missouri. And that does not count the 2 to 5 inches that we received last night in northern Missouri. And so all that rain has led to minor to moderate flooding in Nebraska along the Platte River, in Iowa, including the Little Sioux, in the state of Missouri, including the Grand, Platte, and Osage rivers, and along the Meridistine River in Kansas. The Missouri River itself, from Nebraska City down through St. Joseph, and then again from Sibley down to the mouth, has seen minor to moderate flooding over the past week or so. Looking over the past month, of course, the James River kind of goes without saying, but the James River remains in flood from Columbia, South Dakota, down to Mitchell, South Dakota. Our most recent 3-month river stage outlooks, and that would cover the period of June, July, and August, indicates minor to moderate flooding to continue episodically across southeastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas, and Missouri. And in fact, I wrote this text yesterday, and then last night, as I mentioned, we had a lot of rain in north central Missouri, and a lot of streams are now going back into minor and moderate flooding. And the Missouri River itself will see a small second crest that's working its way through because of last night's rain. Thank you, and this does conclude the National Weather Service Flood Potential Brief for today.
Thanks, Kevin, and I will transfer it over to the water management team. I believe John Remus, do you have any introductory remarks?
Yes, thank you, Eileen, and thanks to Doug and Kevin for their support here today. Good afternoon. I'm John Remus, Chief of the Missouri River Basin Water Management Division. Our office is responsible for regulating the Missouri River Mainstem Reservoir System. I will provide some general remarks, then I will turn the discussion over to my senior staff for more detailed information. I want to assure everyone in the basin that the Corps remains committed to our flood risk reduction mission, protecting stakeholders when we can from significant hydrologic events that pose a threat to human health and safety. The reservoir system is in very good shape, and Ryan Larson and Mike Swinson will provide more detailed discussion in a few minutes. However, I want to caution everyone that we are not out of the woods yet. Floods can and will occur regardless of basin or system conditions due to large precipitation events, particularly along the lower Missouri River, which cannot be mitigated by the operation of the mainstem reservoirs. Kevin Lau just provided some insight into that in his discussion. We posted the June 1st, 2020 Upper Basin runoff forecast on Monday. The forecasted Upper Basin runoff is 32.3 million acre feet. This is above average, and Ryan Larson will provide more details on the runoff forecast. As we move through the summer, we may have to make several release changes from our projects. Ideally, we would be able to provide some advance notice of these changes through press releases or social media posts. However, this may not be possible in all cases. Therefore, I encourage all interested parties to check the Missouri River Basin Water Management and the National Weather Service websites on a daily basis for the most up-to-date information on system conditions and forecasted river stages. That concludes my opening remarks. Thank you very much. I will now turn the discussion over to Ryan Larson. Ryan?
Good afternoon, everyone. Above normal precipitation in parts of Montana, South Dakota during May on top of wet soils resulted in above average runoff in the upper basin above Sioux City. Runoff in every reach was above average, with the total runoff above Sioux City coming in at 4.5 million acre feet, or 131% of average. Next slide. The 2020 calendar year runoff forecast for the upper Missouri Basin above Sioux City is 32.3 million acre feet, or 125% of average, slightly more than what we forecast last month. Next slide. Surface soils have begun drying out in the upper basin. At the end of March, soil moisture was above the 95th percentile over much of the upper basin. However, at the end of May, soil moisture has decreased to the 30th to 70th percentile over much of the basin. In addition, D1, or moderate drought conditions, are now present in western North Dakota and southwestern Montana. D0, or abnormally dry conditions, are present in southern and eastern Montana, western and central North Dakota, much of Wyoming, isolated areas of Iowa, and along the Nebraska-Kansas border.
Right. Eileen, I don't know, maybe it's us. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's just us.
All right, sorry.
Soil moisture is still in the 90th to 99th percentile of north central Nebraska, central South Dakota, and eastern North Dakota. Next slide. Mountain snowpack peaked in mid-April and has begun to melt. Mountain snowpack peaked in the Fort Peck Reach at 17.9 inches, 109% of average, on April 16th. Mountain snowpack peaked in the Garrison Reach at 16.3 inches, 112% of average, on April 19th. Mountain snowpack normally peaks on April 15th. As of June 2nd, remaining mountain snow water equivalent is near 4 inches in both reaches. Inflows into Fort Peck and Garrison have begun increasing as the mountain snowmelt arrives at each reservoir. We expect inflows into Fort Peck and Garrison to be fairly high during the first 2 weeks of June. In summary, the 2020 calendar year runoff forecast is 32.3 million acre feet, or 125% of average, which is about midway between an upper quartile and upper decile runoff year. Thank you, and that concludes my remarks. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Gavin's Point releases have been at 33,000 CFS since May 8th. Releases will remain at that rate during June, downstream conditions permitting. Slide 22 shows the reservoir system storage. Currently, the system storage is at 59.9 million acre feet, utilizing 3.8 million acre feet of the total flood storage space. Approximately 77% of the flood storage is available to store runoff in the coming months. System storage will be increasing in the next few weeks as runoff from the melting mountain snow enters Fort Peck and Garrison, as noted by Ryan. Next slide. Moving on to the monthly reservoir simulations, the basic simulation uses the runoff forecast that Ryan just discussed. Due to the amount of variability in precipitation and other hydrologic factors that can occur over the next several months, we will also develop an upper and lower runoff that are then used in the upper and lower basic simulations. These simulations provide a range of reservoir elevations and releases that may be expected under the different runoff scenarios. The discussion to follow will focus on the basic or most likely runoff forecast. Information on the other scenarios is posted on our webpage. Fort Peck is currently at elevation 2238.2. That's 4.2 feet above the base of the flood control pool. The reservoir is expected to peak this summer near elevation 2241.9, 7.9 feet into the 16-foot flood pool, which extends from elevation 2234 to 2250. Peak daily average releases are expected to be 11,000 CFS this summer. Garrison is currently at 1841, 3.5 feet above the base of the flood control zone. The reservoir is expected to peak this summer near elevation 1845.4, 7.9 feet into the 16.5-foot flood pool, which extends from elevation 1837.5 to 1854. Peak daily releases are expected to average about 28,000 CFS this summer. Oahe is currently at elevation 1611.3, 3.8 feet above the base of the flood control pool. The reservoir is expected to peak near elevation 1612.8. That's 5.3 feet into the 12.5-foot flood pool, which extends from elevation 1607.5 to 1620. Peak daily releases are expected to average about 34,000 CFS. Hourly releases will vary and may be as high as full power plant capacity this summer, depending on peak energy demands. Moving on to slide 24. The service level is used to determine releases from Gavin's Point Dam to support navigation and to help provide an 8 to 9 foot deep navigation channel downstream. The March 15th system storage check indicated that flow support for Missouri River navigation will be at least full service for the first half of the season. The service level for the remainder of the navigation season and the navigation season length are based on the July 1st system storage. Under the basic forecast, flow support for navigation will be at least full service after the July 1st storage check, and a full 8-month navigation season with a 10-day extension would be provided. Monthly average releases from Gavin's Point are expected to range from 33,000 CFS during the summer to 37,000 CFS in the fall. Releases will be reduced in response to downstream flooding when appropriate. Energy generation at the mainstem dams under the basic simulation is 11 billion kilowatt hours. The long-term average is approximately 9.4 billion kilowatt hours. And then moving to slide 25. Slide 25 shows the Missouri River Basin Weekly Update, which is found on our website at the address shown on the top of the slide. This web page gives a general overview of the current conditions in the Missouri River Basin and is updated weekly, usually on Tuesday morning. Thank you, and that concludes my remarks. So I'll turn it back to you, Eileen.
Thanks, Mike. And I'll hand it over to you, Judd.
Good afternoon. I'm Judd Knieven. I'm the Emergency Management Chief for the Kansas City District. If you go to the next slide. Just give you a quick update on levee repairs. We continue to advance levee repairs. This update was from Thursday of last week. It'll be updated later today. So far, we've had 61 approved projects. We expect to have 65 when we're done. Of those 65, we expect to award 56 contracts. We'll bundle some of those projects, so there'll be multiple levies under one contract. But as of right now, we have awarded 30 out of expected 56. And then we still have 26 levee systems that do not have level of protection, meaning that they still have breaches that have not been restored to full height. On the good side of that, there's at least 39 out there that do have level of protection restored. And then on the next slide. And this is the status map. Green is what we're shooting for. Those are projects that are under construction. We have been challenged in recent weeks to advance construction due to the precipitation that you heard the Weather Service discuss, particularly in central Missouri. We've been monitoring and watching conditions really from Kansas City down into the Jefferson City, Missouri reach. We do have areas where levees have not been restored, where we did have flooding in some of those areas where levees were breached, and we continue to work with sponsors to monitor conditions. At this time, we're not proposing to take any additional emergency actions unless we were to see systemic flooding throughout our area of responsibility from Rulo down to below Washington, Missouri. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thanks, Judd, and I'll hand it over to Matt Kratzke.
Hey, thanks, Eileen. This is Matt Kratzke, Chief of the Readiness Branch in the Omaha District Corps of Engineers. The Omaha District Emergency Operations Center continues to monitor basin condition in all the states within our district boundaries. And since our last call, we've awarded a contract to close the remaining breaches and make final repairs on the Missouri River Levee Unit L536 system north of Corning, Missouri. The L536 system is the final Missouri River levee damaged by the March 2019 flood event to have a construction contract awarded. And repairs are expected to be completed by March. Can you still hear me, Eileen?
Yeah, you cut out for a second there, but you're back. You said a contract completed by March.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my headphones gave up life. All of the active levee systems in the PL 8499 program along the Missouri River, with the exception of L536, have been closed and returned to their pre-flood height. I do want to stress, however, that even though these systems have been returned to their original height, they do not yet offer the same level of risk reduction as they did prior to March of 2019. They're still an elevated risk until all of the damages of the levees can be fully repaired, and work is continuing on these systems to restore them, and this work includes repairing erosion, establishing sod cover, placing riprap, repairing the drainage structures, and other miscellaneous repairs. Our biggest focus right now is on working with the levee sponsors to identify and secure any necessary real estate to complete all these final repairs. In the past month, we've also awarded a contract to repair the Pender-Logan Creek right bank levee system in Pender, Nebraska. This contract will fully repair this levee system, and this will be the 17th contract the Omaha District has awarded to repair a levee on a tributary system damaged during the March 2019 event. To date, we've awarded 36 construction contracts, 12 initial and interim levee repairs, 22 full rehab levee projects. one O&M project, and one emergency repair contract. There are 7 additional full rehabilitation levee projects and one military construction levee construction project planned for construction and in the engineering and design phase. Additionally, we have awarded 3 AE contracts to help with the design of the levee system repairs. And finally, the Hamburg Ditch 6 levee preliminary design, the 30% design, is nearing completion and is under review right now, so that project continues to move forward. In addition to repairs along the Missouri River, repairs continue on multiple tributary levees, including the Ames Diking District, Clear Creek levees on the Platte, and we're also continuing to develop design and repair contracts for all remaining damaged infrastructure along the trib systems, with the goal being to have all of these system repairs under contract in the next few months. To date, the Omaha District has secured more than $600 million, while at the same time putting in place additional contracting tools to continue our flood response and repair efforts. For regular updates on our repair efforts in the Missouri River Basin within the Omaha District, you can visit our webpage at www.nwo.usace.army.mil. Click the red levee status update icon on the left side of the page, and you can track updates, view photos, and videos. Finally, we remain vigilant concerning this time of year and the weather conditions, and we can't reiterate enough that life safety continues to be our primary focus to repair the levee systems. We continue to work with our federal, state, local emergency management partners to keep the public informed. This concludes my comments today. Thanks, Eileen.
Thanks, Matt. And just so we know, we've got 86 callers on the line. I want to thank everybody who has taken the time to call in. We're going to move to the question and answer session. As I mentioned before, this is the last scheduled call for 2020, so if we do have conditions warrant an additional call, we'll make notifications in advance. To move into the question and answer session, as I mentioned before, everyone's line is on mute, so to unmute your phone and ask a question, press *6. I'm going to manage questions in order based on state, alphabetical order, and then we'll go first with tribal, congressional, state and local government levy sponsors, and then second round we'll go allow the media to ask questions. So please wait for your state to be called, and please state your name and the organization you represent before asking your question. So first up is Iowa. Okay, state of Kansas. Missouri. Remember to *6 to unmute your line. Montana. Nebraska. North Dakota. South Dakota.
Eileen?
Yes.
This is Jeff Dooley at Dakota Dunes.
Hey, Jeff.
Question for Mr. Remus. John, during the calls late last year, you had talked about the possibility of trying to create more storage in the reservoir system, but you really couldn't, understandably so, because of the amount of runoff. Has there been any further discussion about the creation of more runoff or more storage this year with the conditions that exist?
We were talking about possibly creating more flood control storage specifically for 2020, and the reason for that was we were going into the year with fairly wet basin, so we were anticipating a larger than average runoff year. That, coupled with the compromised levee systems, we thought that if we could create more storage space in 2019 for 2020, that would be a prudent move. We have not had any discussions about permanently creating any additional flood control storage in the system. That was just a one-year thing.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions from the state of South Dakota? Okay, Wyoming. All right, we'll move to media. Again, alphabetical order by state. State your name and organization you represent. *6 to unmute your phone to ask a question. State of Iowa? Kansas? Missouri?
I'm not with the media. This is Joe Gibbs. I didn't catch the time to ask questions on Missouri. I didn't know what would be a good time.
Go ahead now. That's fine, Joe.
Okay. I asked in previous meetings if there's been a recurrence interval computed for the flood in 2019. It said it hadn't been computed yet, and I wonder if that is still underway.
Hey, Joe, this is John Remus. It still has not been finalized.
Okay. Could Judd repeat his numbers again on, I got 56 approved projects, 30 contracts, 26 were not, or 39 don't give full protection. I was a little confused there, but could he repeat that?
Sure. So projects approved, Joe, are 61 of 65.
I see. Okay.
61 of 65. Contracts awarded are 30 of 56.
Okay.
And then levies that do not have level of protection would be 26 of 65.
Okay. I see.
All right. 39 of 65 have level of protection.
Right. Okay. I think that's all I had for right now. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Was wondering where you were when I said Missouri for the first round of questions.
Well, I don't know what happened. Maybe I didn't hear it. I don't know.
No worries. All right. Thanks, Joe.
I was following it in alphabetical order, and I don't know what happened.
No worries. All right, I'm going to move, continue State of Missouri media. If you have any questions, star 6. Okay. Montana. Nebraska. North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming. Any national media or other locations? Any final questions before we adjourn?
Eileen, this is John Remus. I'd like to make a few comments before we adjourn if there's no more questions.
I guess I'll give you the line.
All right. I just want to thank everybody for participating on these calls. And as Eileen said at the beginning, this is our last scheduled call for 2020. However, we will continue to monitor the conditions in the basin, and if something changes, we will certainly engage the basin in a stakeholder call on an ad hoc basis. And I also want to thank the Weather Service for supporting these calls all last year and so far this year. It really helps out a lot. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Eileen, to close us out.
Thanks, John. Again, we had 86 callers today, and I appreciate everyone calling in and participation. If you do have questions, we've provided that slide with everyone's contact information, including mine, and I'll be happy to help you out there. We do send a press release as a follow-up to this call. Normally it's out before the call, and since we didn't get it out so far, so it will be coming shortly. And with that, I again thank you all for participating, and God willing, we'll talk to you in January. This concludes the call.
There's going to be an AOP meeting or an AOP call in July, won't they, or something?
Sorry, Joe, John, are you still on the line?
Yes. What was the question again, Joe?
Well, we have an
He
AOP
was asking about AOP
meeting in July. You're still going to have that, aren't you?
Well, our public meetings, we had them virtually this year in April, and we will have meetings this fall as far as our public meetings. Whether or not they'll be virtual or in person is yet to be determined. It kind of depends on how things go with the coronavirus and so on and so forth. But we will have some sort of public engagement this fall. We generally have those in the October, November time frame. They will be in that time frame again. But we hopefully we'll be able to do those in person. But if we can't, we'll do them virtually.
Yeah, I thought we had one in July too, but I guess not.
No, not usually, no.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. With that, I will conclude the call. Thank you.